We are going to see extreme accountability, maximum accountability. We are going to have permanent accountability with extreme prejudice.
This guy's a Nazi, and I don't use that flippantly. I'm not like, you know, left wing, everybody to the right of me is a Nazi. No, I mean literally actually loves Hitler. It's crazy, seriously. I wanted to talk about him because he had what he called an extreme accountability conference that was scheduled for not too far in the future, and it was canceled by the venue because Right Wing Watch and I think some other people called the venue and just told him what's going on, that this guy's a literal Nazi, told him what he planned to do at this extreme accountability conference. I mean, I'm sure you can imagine. You won't have to imagine because I'm about to tell you. Just a little bit more context on this guy. Just content warning, this guy is an insane nutcase, so take that for what you will. He talks about the death penalty, put it that way. Content warning, death penalty discussion.
So we're going to drag Tony Fauci out of retirement. We're going to put him in the docket. We will force him to confront his lies about gain-of-function research.
I can't let that slide. It's just complete nonsense. This is a propagandistic framing presented by Rand Paul to fundraise. Rand Paul is a doctor, okay? He's I think he's an MD or ophthalmologist or something. I don't remember. He knows medicine. He knows what he's doing and what he's talking about. And he fear-mongered and propagandized about gain-of-function research, quote-unquote, and claimed that Fauci was, like, secretly funding it or some other shit. It's complete nonsense. All of it.
We will read off every single one of the emails that he sent exposing the research that he funded at that bioweapons lab called the Wuhan Institute of Virology.
God, dude, it's insane. So does he think that COVID was real or not? I'm not sure. It's kind of a toss-up with people in his realm. Like, either they think that it was like a chemical weapon or it's just completely fabricated.
We'll expose all of the emails he sent organizing and promoting the lies that covered it all up. And we will hold him accountable for the millions of lives that his illegal research cost.
Just fabricated nonsense again.
And when he is convicted, after a short and fast but thorough trial.
I feel like you can have two of those three things, short, fast, and thorough. You can, pick two of those. Short and thorough? No, I guess pick one. And what's the difference between short and fast? All right, I'm getting off on a tangent here.
He will hang from a length of thick rope until he is dead.
He uses that kind of language a lot, is the point. There's a reason for me showing you this, because I want to show you that he's not just kind of down a QAnon rabbit hole. He's a militant, a violent extremist. It's not just about having bizarre beliefs. Like I said, we're going to get to the conference in just a second, but listen to this one. I just want to lay some foundation for you so you have an idea of who he is real quick. The other two clips were from late August 2023. This one is from early March 2024. Guy on the right is a Nazi also, by the way. Quick interjection, this won't take long, I promise. I'd appreciate it if you watched to the end of the video, or at least a couple extra seconds, because YouTube bases its algorithm off of watch time. The more watch time a video has, the further the video will go. Also, take a look at my website, owenmorgan.com. I'm selling my book, Understanding Jehovah's Witnesses, 400 pages, and my second book, 100 Questions for Jehovah's Witnesses, which is about 80 pages. And you can find them both there on the website. Audio form, ebook form, whatever. It's about my experiences within the religion and the history of the religion generally. The 100 questions are intended to challenge your religious leader, so I'd appreciate it if you give it a read. Okay, back to the video.
When the whole country is falling apart, you look at, well, who's leading it? And you have all these unelected Jews, and you're like, oh my God, it's all the Jews. And then I go on Alex Jones, and I'm like, look, this is a big problem, the Jews. And then I start digging into it more. And like every conversation that I have, I mean, it could be about food that's bad for you. It could be about what's being sprayed in the skies. It could be about, the dog food that you feed. And everything is Jews.
And that didn't tip him off that every single conversation he has is routing back to a single source. Like, come on, bro, pull it together. I suppose I could see a scenario in which one group of people is trying to hold sway in the country, but you've got to be damn sure before you come out here and say some crazy shit like this. And by the way, it's not like Jews are not like pulling strings like puppet masters. Like, get a grip on reality.
All like everything that's going wrong in every sector of life, it's like the person that's leading it happens to claim to be Jewish. And so I like cognitively.
Or do they claim to be white also? And do they drink water? Maybe there's like a connection there, right? Sounds like there's a correlation. There's definitely a correlation. You know what? Hitler drank water too. People who drink water commit genocide. We need to do something about this. This is a problem, people. Stop drinking water to prevent genocides in the future. That's the same kind of logic. I'm being flippant here, but seriously, that's what he's doing.
Leading it happens to claim to be Jewish. And so I like cognitively made the decision. I'm going to try to pull back and not have this tunnel vision. And
there you go.
so it's like, well, these Catholics, oh, good. The Catholics are finally, behind.
Why is he like creating these little groups and attacking people over it? Like, why is he even creating these little identities?
Something. These fake Catholics are ruining our country with all of this immigration stuff. And guess who's funding the fake Catholics? The Jews.
Should give you some context for who he is, what he believes, how he feels about things. You know what you're walking into now, right? Now, like I said, he wanted to hold an extreme accountability conference. And this is the clip where he announces that conference and what he intends to do. If you're watching, you can see that I'm just flipping by and you're looking at books. Before we actually listen to this clip, I want to read an excerpt from a book for you guys. It's real short. Just take me a second, okay? The book is titled The Coming of the Third Reich, The History of the Third Reich, by Richard J. Evans. It's gigantic. It's like 1,000 pages long. It's like a 28-hour Audible read. This is the beginning of the chapter in like one of these sections, Bringing Germany into Line. At this point in history, this was 1933. Hitler had already done his own January 6th in 1923. And almost succeeded, got even closer than Donald Trump did. And he failed. The military came in from outside the city, captured the city again, and put Hitler in jail, sentenced to 5 years for high treason. Only served 9 months, got out on good behavior. They want to give him deaf guards so that he couldn't talk his way out, seriously. Anyway, so he spent time in prison, and after that, it just ramped up heavily. The Nazi presence got stronger and stronger and stronger. An election was held. The Weimar Republic, the government at the time, very similar to the U.S. government today in its structure. They had congressmen. They called them Reichstag members. They had a Capitol building, the Reichstag. They had some kind of equivalent of senators, a little bit. They were called Reichsrat. Anyway, very, very similar. So they held an election, and the far-right candidate, who had been in charge up to that point, was running against Hitler, who was an even further right candidate, right? The president, the guy running against Hitler won, but he had to make deals with Hitler and everything, and he named him chancellor. So Hitler controlled the entire government at that point, and the president only, his powers are limited. His real power was in who he picked as chancellor and his bully pulpit. Early 1933, the Enabling Act was passed or was implemented. I'm sorry, was it passed or implemented? Yeah, so the Enabling Act was passed by the German parliament on March 23rd, 1933. Enabling Act gave the chancellor the ability to write laws, to just legislate. So all the power was centralized. It was supposed to be for like emergency situations. Hitler took it over. That was in March. So this chapter starts out on the morning of May 6th, 1933. By this point, Hitler had fully taken control. And he was doing absolutely psychotic things, needless to say. All right, listen to this short excerpt. On the morning of May 6, 1933, a group of vans pulled up outside Dr. Magnus Hirschfeld's Institute for Sexual Science in the Smart Tiergarten district of Berlin. Institute for Sexual Science was, Magnus was gay, openly gay, and he was one of the pioneers in LGBT studies. They had trans people there, and he had classes on sexuality and, sex ed and things like that. Really, really valuable institute. Out of them leapt students from the Berlin School for Physical Education, members of the National Socialist German Students' League. They drew up in military formation. Then, while some of them took out their trumpets and tubas and started to play patriotic music, the others marched into the building. Their intentions were clearly unfriendly. Hirschfeld's institute was well known in Berlin, not only for its championing of causes such as the legalization of homosexuality and abortion, and for its popular evening classes in sexual education, but also for its comprehensive collection of books and manuscripts on sexual topics, built up by the director since before the turn of the century. By 1933, it housed between 12,000 and 20,000 books, estimates vary, and an even larger collection of photographs on sexual subjects. Notice who the Nazis are targeting. This is one of the first targets. I mean, that they were blaming Jews for all of their financial woes and everything, but socially they were very, very far right, and were clamping down on anybody who was not exactly like them. White, Aryan, blonde hair, blue-eyed type of deal. The Nazi students who stormed into the Institute on May 6, 1933, proceeded to pour red ink over books and manuscripts, played football with the framed photographs, leaving the floor covered in shards of broken glass, and ransacked the cupboards and drawers, throwing their contents onto the floor. 4 days later, more vans arrived, this time with stormtroopers. Yes, that's really what they were called, stormtroopers. Seriously, is Star Wars starting to make more sense? This time with stormtroopers carrying baskets into which they piled as many books and manuscripts as they could and took them out onto the Opera Square. This is the important part. Here they stacked them up in a gigantic heap and set light to them. About 10,000 books are said to have been consumed in the conflagration. Crazy word. As the fire burned into the evening, the students carried a bust of the Institute's director into the square and threw it into the flames. Told that the 65-year-old Hirschfeld was abroad recovering from an illness, the stormtrooper said, "Then hopefully he'll snuff it without us. Then we won't need to string him up or beat him to death." Wisely, Hirschfeld did not return to Germany. The United States got involved in World War II, I think, in 1939. No, I'm sorry. U.S. entered World War II on December 8th, 1941. So this is about 7 years before that or so, right? 1933. May 6, 1933. And Hitler died in 1945. Magnus Hirschfeld died in France, suddenly and inexplicably, on May 14th, 1935. 6 years before the U.S. would get involved in World War II. And 10 years before it came to an end, really. So now you have a little bit of context for book burnings and pouring red ink over books and hatred of quote-unquote sexual deviancy, as they called it, right?
Quick interjection, this won't take long, I promise. I just want to say I'd appreciate it if you check my Patreon. owenmorgan.com/Patreon to find it. YouTube's algorithm goes up and down, so I can never predict where it's going to be. Having patrons gives me some level of stability. Okay, back to the video.
Now, let's listen to this Nazi. I'm comfortable calling him that. Is that fair? Let's listen to this Nazi explain what he intended to do at his quote-unquote extreme accountability conference in New Jersey.
If we demand that the classroom bookcases and school library shelves be cleansed of filth and perversion and pedophilic materials, then we're called a bunch of book burners.
Well, I'm calling you a conspiracy theorist because that stuff isn't like in classroom libraries or whatever. It's just nonsense.
Well, guess what? That's exactly what we are. And that's exactly what we're going to do. The time is now. It's time for the American people, real men, to saddle up, to go on the march. It's time for us to go into the public libraries, to go into these public schools and rip the filth off of these shelves and destroy it. To remove it from the face of the planet for all of eternity.
He doesn't just want to burn these books, he wants to destroy the information contained within, right?
To turn it to ash. And every time it's reprinted, we do it all over again. And eventually we'll get a hold of the perverts' hard drives and we'll burn those too. All of this filth will never again see the light of day. And an army of Americans, an army of patriots, millions of men strong, will make sure of it.
An army of patriots. not for nothing. I don't want to like keep coming back to Hitler comparisons, but this is 100% fair given the context of this guy, right? I think. Not for nothing, but what he's referring to is Hitler's brown shirts. The brown shirts were like Hitler's private army. It operated nearly identically to the Proud Boys. It was just a little grassroots group that appeared and started doing like security for Hitler. As a matter of fact, the government at the time tried to quell the brown shirts riots and things by banning them from wearing brown shirts. But there's an image in the back of this book right here. Here we go. The futility of Bruning's ban on uniforms, December 1930. The brown shirts wear white shirts instead, and the effect is the same. He's talking about brown shirts right now, the Proud Boys. People that would go in and rough up, people that were like political enemies to Hitler. They'd rough up trade unionists. They'd rough up liberals or gay people or trans or whatever. And if somebody got killed, oops, who did it? Which one? Nobody knows. That's what Stu Peters is talking about right now.
Burn those two. All of this filth will never again see the light of day. And an army of Americans, an army of patriots, millions of men strong, will make sure of it. We're going to spend the summer going into our communities and removing all of the filth and smut and pedophilic and pornographic materials from the schools and the library bookshelves and everywhere it's hawked onto our kids. And come October, we're going to bring it all to Atlantic City Beach, New Jersey, and we're going to kill it with fire.
Catch that? That was his extreme accountability plan, his conference. Come October, we're going to kill it with fire. He officially announced where and when it was happening. And within a day, when the company found out who he was and what he was up to, they canceled.
We're going to vanquish it from the earth. And this will only be the beginning. We will begin formulating real plans together to take our country back and pull the next generation out of the hellfire that surely awaits them if we continue to do nothing.
You know why that's so disturbing to me? Because if you really deeply buy into this idea that everybody is going to hell if they don't blah, if they don't follow your like plans or your beliefs or your guidance or whatever, what are you not morally justified in doing? If you see 100 people lined up on a cliff and a man about to push all 100 people off the cliff and you have a gun, what are you morally obligated to do? The moral decision would be to save the 100 people from the aggressor, right? Now, in Stu Peters' mind, that's the situation that he's in. He thinks that everybody in the United States is going to hell because these books are on the bookshelves, and he's going to save them from burning for eternity by burning the books instead. This is the epitome of radical religious extremism. He is the Christian version of the 9/11 hijackers. Okay, now listen to his announcement that his event was canceled. This one, by the way, that previous clip was from early March 2024. This one is from late May 2024.
Just one day after we announced the Extreme Accountability event, actually less than a full day, less than 24 hours later, these people at Right Wing Watch, these lizard things, these pedophile enablers at Right
Lizard things. Okay, I'm interested. Go on. I wish you'd really dig into the lizard things statement he just laid down.
These pedophile enablers at Right Wing Watch, who, by the way, they're madly in love with me. They have an obsession. They just drool. They salivate while they watch every move that I make as they stare at me. And
oh, yeah, totally. Absolutely. I mean, you know what? I'm not Right Wing Watch. I'm not affiliated with them in any way, but I get some of my material from them. I'm a social media influencer, if you will, and I talk about him. So let's just assume he's talking about me here for a moment. Is that fair?
Drool. They salivate while they watch every move that I make as they...
100% true. Absolutely. You guys don't notice, but I salivate sitting here listening to Stu Peters talk.
That I make as they stare at me and hang on every word that I say.
Stare longingly into those beautiful brown eyes. Yep.
These parasites at Right Wing Watch and the rest of the corporate media came out running hit pieces on me and you and our event like this.
They're not doing hit pieces, okay? This isn't a hit piece. I'm playing clips of things that you have said and showing how it compares to what Hitler said and did. Okay, it's like 1-to-1 comparison here. It's not hard to draw conclusions. I'm not even drawing conclusions. I'm using his own words. He said the Jews are the source of all societal ills. He said we need to hold book burnings. Yes, I'm a book burner. How can you, like, claim that these are hit pieces when they're literally your own words? There isn't like a twisting. There isn't like a taking out of context element to this or anything. Like, my God.
Especially fake one from this fake raw story published by this fake journalist called Kathleen Culleton.
Yeah, this is stochastic terrorism that he's doing right now. He drew their attention to her name so that his audience of hundreds of thousands, millions maybe, will find her and attack her. Now, she's public. She's on Raw Story. She's a journalist. And it's valuable for her to have her name out there anyway. That's why she puts it out there in the first place. That's why I put my name out there, because I want people to, like, come to my stuff and learn about it and show credibility by putting my name out there. What Stu Peters is doing here, though, is wrong. Stochastic terrorism. Demonizing somebody to a degree that it's a virtual guarantee that some lunatic is going to do something absolutely unhinged. A virtual guarantee, like Donald Trump demonizing Hillary Clinton. It's a virtual guarantee that she's going to get death threats and somebody's going to do something, pull a trigger, right? At some point, if they can get close enough, that's going to happen if he demonizes Hillary Clinton enough. That's what Stu Peters is doing right now with Kathleen Culleton. I'm not hiding her name because she wants her name public, and my audience is much more friendly to her, not domestic terrorists, I would like to think. And I think that this probably only helps her to have, more coverage of what's happening, but Stu Peters is being a domestic terrorist here, seriously.
And in response, the cowards, who we now know are pedophile enablers at Caesars of Atlantic City, New Jersey, canceled on us. Their whole legal team, a team of lawyers, was in a complete panic based on the lies told by Right Wing Watch.
It's really hard to get out of those contracts. Those lies told by Right Wing Watch, by the way. What lies? He posted this thing here. It says, the intellectualist. I'm not actually sure who that is, but it's not Right Wing Watch, whatever. Pro-Trump influencer Stu Peters is organizing a book burning. He's encouraging his followers to go into schools and incinerate books at Right Wing Watch. Yeah, that's literally what he said. We just listened to it. These are lies? What are you talking about?
It's told by Right Wing Watch and Newsweek and Raw Story. It took less than 24 hours for the extreme accountability event that was announced right here on the Stu Peters Show to be shut down by Caesars, who knew exactly who I was, who knew exactly who we are and what it is that we plan to do.
They knew that? Because that's actually a story in its own right. They knew who you were and what you planned to do. Take a bunch of books and burn them at this extreme accountability event? I'm not really convinced that that's true. I mean, it works to his benefit to claim that. Why is he even pretending to not be an extremist? He's pretending that everybody likes him and what he's doing is 100% reasonable. No, it's psychotic.
And who it is that we plan to protect. But they booted us off of their reservation list so they could try washing their hands of the entire thing as quickly as possible.
That's really hard to do. Those contracts, I know, because I hosted Faithless Forum. I was one of 3 people. Me, Genetically Modified Skeptic, Holy Kool-Aid. We hosted Faithless Forum. I don't remember how many we got. Between 150 and 300, I think, which is pretty good. And that's probably what Stu Peters expected, or somewhere in that vicinity. And those contracts cost in the range of, you have to put about $20,000 down. Then you create room blocks, and you have to meet like a $50,000 food and beverage minimum. So everybody who buys a room in your block, everybody who puts a drink on their tab, or buys drinks at the bar or whatever, all of that adds up to the food and beverage minimum of $50,000. And assuming that the hotel makes $50,000 food and beverage minimum from your people and the $20,000 that you lay down, that's all you have to pay usually. So $70,000, $80,000, $100,000. He probably put $20,000 down and they canceled. I don't know how much money, what the penalty was, but you can't just cancel on that stuff. He might have gotten an additional $10,000 out of that. I don't know. He probably came out on top in that scenario. Anyway, I'm glad to see that Caesars Atlantic City something, whatever the hotel was, I'm glad to see that they canceled. That's good news. I'm sad to see that Stu Peters is so gigantic. He's got 500,000 subbies on Rumble, I think, but his main audience isn't even on Rumble. It's on his website in podcast form. I would say he's in the millions of subbies total across his platforms. He gets tons of views every single day. I just want to say, oh my God, dude, Fresh and Fit had Stu Peters on. Oh, that's crazy, dude. That is crazy. Okay, so Stu Peters has 600,000 subbies on Rumble. I learned that you cannot trust Rumble's view counts. They're fake. So I click into them and see how many comments it has, compare it to how many comments my videos have roughly. It should give us a rough idea of how many views it really has. So it says 41,500 views, and it's got 250 likes, basically, right? 96 comments. Let me look in my back end and see if I have a video that's comparable to that size, roughly. 242 likes. All right, here we go. Here's a video with 95 comments on it. And this one, Stu Peters has 96 comments. My 95 comment video has 600 likes, or 700 likes to 11 dislikes. Stu Peters has 242 likes to 23 dislikes. My video has 9,000 views. His purports to have 41,000 views. That is a disparity that I cannot abide by. I'm sorry. That's fake, right? These are fake views. Either way, he is extremely influential, and again, not even on Rumble, on his own platforms. Let's listen to a little bit more, because the excerpt I read earlier from The Coming of the Third Reich by Richard J. Evans is more precise to what Stu Peters has planned than you probably thought. It's like he's reading a history book and implementing the plans. Listen to this. This one, I think this is from March 2024, I believe.
And Weimar, of course, was the birthplace of the transgenderism and gay.
Weimar Republic. It was the government of Germany before Hitler came along and after World War I. So 1919 to 1933, basically. And it was nearly identical to the U.S. government. They had unemployment insurance and a whole bunch of other things that were really valuable. And it was a democracy, the whole nine. It was actually a democratic republic, just like here.
And Weimar, of course, was the birthplace of the transgenderism and gay rights movements that have once again reared their ugly heads to plague Western Christian society, especially America.
I guess he was categorizing Germany as Western Christian society and saying that it was good, that he likes Hitler's Germany, Nazi Germany. He appreciates it, its values. Is that what I'm reading? Becky D says, that's how many he paid for. I don't think so. Paying for views is not feasible. It's not a reasonable option. It costs way too much money to pay for views, and people have to watch the video for a certain period of time to have it counted as a view. Additionally, the more watch time a video has, the further it will spread in the algorithm. That's why it's really valuable for people to watch my videos for longer and longer and longer. Like, if you planned on watching for 10 minutes and push through to 12 minutes, and it will boost the video. I think that Rumble is artificially inflating the views because it's not just Stu Peters. It's like Dr. Drew and pretty much every Rumble channel that I've found so far are 4 times, 5 times bigger, or 5 times more views than they should have compared to like comments and ratings.
All of this was happening with the full blessing of the Weimar government, which was largely controlled by Jews.
Yet a grip on reality, Stu. My God, the Weimar Republic was not largely controlled by Jews. That was Nazi propaganda. And when you say they had the full blessing to have the Sexual Institute, Magnus Hirschfeld, you mean they allowed people to have freedom? Sure. I suppose they didn't ban it outright, but there were a lot of right-wingers back then that hated gay people, hated them. Still are, but back then, the Institute did not have the blessing of the Weimar Republic. They just didn't do anything about it because of personal freedom and liberty and junk, that's all. Until that came to an abrupt end in 1933.
The Jews controlled the German court system. Jews controlled the German banking system.
This is complete fabricated bullshit. I'm sure I don't even need to say that, but I'm going to anyway. For the record, he's making this up. He's probably not making it up. He's pulling it right out of Hitler's mouth.
The Jewish people had unprecedented overrepresentation in Germany's government, and they ruled the numerous and hyper-violent communist factions that were trying to take over the country, both by force and at the ballot box.
Bullshit. All of it.
The Jews also ruled the biggest cultural forces of the time, which were often merged with academia, with the medical field, maximum infiltration for maximum effect.
He's creating a conspiracy where there was none. The Jews were not like trying to take control of the world like this. Jews have been the historical scapegoat of planet Earth for like a really, really long time, particularly since the early 1900s. 1902 to 1905, Tsarist Russia started attacking Jews, probably worse than Hitler was, worse than Hitler would eventually persecute the Jews. Like everybody hated Jews back then. It was wild. Not really the same today. There is very clearly an anti-Semitic thread running through society. I don't know how you can deny that. But it's a little bit different now than it was then, I think.
Sound familiar? They would set their crosshairs on something. They would decide on something that they wanted to completely destroy, some sense of normalcy that they wanted to chip away at, and they'd legitimize it through...
Notice how many times he's using the word they here. Just step back and count them. They is called weasel words, an ambiguous authority figure that's pulling strings behind the scenes and forcing things to happen that they want to, forcing society into line, so on and so forth. Count the theys here. It's usually used to refer to elites, quote unquote, or Jews commonly. But listen to this.
They would decide on something that they wanted to completely destroy, some sense of normalcy that they wanted to chip away at, and they'd legitimize it through phony academic and medical studies, just like they continue to do right now today.
That's 5 days in what was that, like one sentence, one run-on sentence?
And one of the most disgusting, most revolting figures of the entire Weimar Republic was a man called Magnus Hirschfeld. Hirschfeld was a Jewish physician and
Hirschfeld, but okay, whatever.
Hirschfeld was a Jewish physician and self-proclaimed sexologist who pioneered transgenderism at his Berlin-based Institute for Sexual Research. Hirschfeld himself was a homosexual. He was the father of transgenderism.
You think trans people didn't exist before Hirschfeld? Okay.
He's still hailed as a hero today by many a pervert. He was the first person to perform a male-to-female operation.
Again, don't believe a word out of his mouth. Look it up independently. I've already heard the dude tell like 50 lies in the course of this like 30, 45-minute block in this video here. Look everything up. Everything.
Way back in 1931, he castrated a gay guy who later died after a botched attempt to transplant a woman's uterus into his male body and allow him to carry a child.
You have no idea what he's talking about here.
These same disgusting science fiction perversions that are being peddled to us today with the backing of the U.S. government and a bunch of perverted so-called doctors were being peddled to the Germans in the 1930s by their government and a bunch of perverted fake doctors like Magnus Hirschfeld and the others who hung around his facility.
Dude, is he only hearing his name? Is he not reading his name? It's Hirschfeld. Hirschfeld. Yeah, right here, look. Dr. Magnus Hirschfeld. Why does he keep saying Hirschfeld?
Now, I'm going to ask you to just imagine. Just imagine for a moment.
Please.
How sick one has to be to actually be the guy to come up with all of this and then to actually do.
What, to be gay? To encourage sexual education? To collect academic works and literature on sexual subjects? The gall, huh? To be one of the pioneers of the pro-gay movement, the pro-LGBT movement. That's what the dude was. Magnus Hirschfeld was just advocating for sexual freedom and liberty and helping people who were gay and trans and so on. That's it.
With all of this, and then to actually do it to people, to carry it out. It's not a pleasant image to think about. But imagine this disgusting surgery. I mean, it's brutal today.
Yeah, I'm going to pass on that one. Thank you so much, Stu. Anyway, that's Stu Peters. That's his view on society, his plans for society. Again, I don't think he's going to accomplish any of this stuff. It's just psychotic to look at the far right and see what they're up to right now. Like, what the hell is happening? He's going to hold a book burning of books that his nutcase audience gathered up. That's crazy. Get a grip on reality, Stu, and stop being a domestic terrorist. Christ on a cracker. Let me know what you think about it in the comments. He's referring to Lily Elby, who did die after a uterine transplant. He's using one true thing to try to prove a sea of falsehoods. Interesting. Okay. I'm unfamiliar with the story entirely. And that's kind of the nature of these people's tactics, of Stu Peters' tactics. Use one true thing to prove a sea of falsehoods.